Okay guys, today we are going to talk about the Sofar 3-phase 10 kilowatt solar inverter. So compared to the Sungrow, this is a little bit cheaper. It's more like a normal model, to put it that way, because in this range you have a lot of competing products. You have Sofar, you have TMDA, INVT, and they are produced by factories in China, and actually in some factories they produce the same, they produce many models and just put a branding on them. So it's a lot of competition in this area of pricing, and Sofar is an example of these kind of inverters that works good, and the price is cheaper than Huawei and Sungrow, and of course cheaper than SMA and Fronius. SMA and Fronius is sort of the most expensive, or not even sort of. Those two inverter brands are the most expensive. Under there comes Huawei and Sungrow, and under there comes Sofar and Daya and TMDA and INVT and all these brands. So Sofar is an example of these, a little bit cheaper. Doesn't mean that it's bad. As you can see here, let's see, we have a nice heatsink here, we have nice features, we have a small screen, and actually the efficiency is actually really good, in 98% efficiency. So the loss that this inverter has is actually very little. So it's a great inverter, but of course, because the price is much lower, you're going to be having some functionality that's not there. And that is, for example, that you cannot attach a cable when you connect to the internet. You must use Wi-Fi, which is a drawback for sure, but it's something that you can get around if you just know that that's the way it is. So you just have to remember that if you change something, if you change the password, if you change the router, or if the inverter is far from the router, you really have to do a lot more work compared to if you had a communication dongle that was able to take a cable for communication. So you do have that limitation. Another limitation is that the app for observation is called SolarMan, which I think compared to other solutions is not as good, but it still works. So it's not like this doesn't work. It's a solution that works. It's just not, the design is not as good. The app is maybe a little bit slower and doesn't give you as appealing interface, but it still works. And now for the no export solution. Of course, every inverter has to have a no export solution. And the way that that is done is through smart meters like this. So this solution Sofar has is very good, but it's a meter that's not produced by Sofar. It's this meter that's another manufacturer is making, and then CTs have to be connected, and you have to enter the correct parameters of the CT. So this goes around the live 3 phases, one for each phase obviously, gives data to the smart meter that then gives data to the inverter about what's going on, and that way it can also stop export. So that's how that works, but it's more difficult to set this up compared to a smart meter that's made by the same manufacturer and where you have a sort of complete solution by the inverter manufacturer. So there's that. But if you have a good installer that can set it up, this should be working fine and is a good inverter. And for the price, it's good value for money. One thing that we encountered, we have installed this and we have seen it in action. No export function works good, the inverter works good, but when you want to expand the voltage, actually the engineer informed us that that cannot be done. So let's say that you have a situation where your supply is with varying voltage, it goes low or it goes high, then you cannot expand the range on this model, and that is a negative. So you have to be sure that your electrical supply is a decent supply before you install this, because as opposed to other inverters like Huawei and Sungrow, etc., on this model you cannot expand the volt range. So that is a limitation to where you can install it. So that is something that's really important, especially for DIY guys, that they have to make sure that their supply is pretty good, like not too much variation in the voltage, because then this inverter is gonna give you problems. Except for that, it's good stuff and very good value for money. Okay guys, that's it for the Sofar 10 kilowatt 3-phase model.